Hey, I think when you're young, you're just a rubber band, so you're not getting injured as much. Like one fall, and you're lighter, so one fall can affect a kid differently than it would an adult
Hmm.
if they fall in the same way. And I think second is like the map that is presented visually to a kid. In a generation versus another generation. So, a kid that was presented like the map of tricks that have been done in skateboarding 20 years ago is fully different than the map of tricks that's presented to a kid coming up in skateboarding today.
This episode of the Smart Athlete Podcast is brought to you by Solpre. If you're active at all, whether you're running or simply out walking for the day, you've probably experienced one of the number one problems that active people have, and that's chafing. Solpre's all new, all natural anti-chafe balm solves that problem while feeding your skin the vital nutrients it needs to be healthy. If you'd like to stop chafing once and for all and treat your body right, go to solpri.com to check out the anti-chafe balm today. That's SOLPRI.com. Welcome to the Smart Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Funk. My guest today is a former pro freestyle skier from 2009 to 2014. I haven't talked to many skiers aside from Doug Lewis back in episode 102. So getting into the winter sports, happy to have him here. He's also the co-founder of Cintri Media. Welcome to the show, Evan Schwartz.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me today, Jesse. Looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. And so you've seen a little bit of the things I've done. I kind of come from an endurance sport background. And anybody that listened to the episode with Doug Lewis back on episode 102 knows that the only thing I know about snow is how to build a snowman, basically. I don't know anything about snow sports. I mean, I've obviously watched them, but just no personal familiarity at all. So, uh, is it simply a matter of like you grew up in an area that's big on that? Like, how do you get started? Uh, you know, skiing, let alone freestyle skiing.
Yeah, good question. I'm sure you can build a great snowman. My that good there, but my it started when I was really young. My dad has a huge passion for skiing. He loved it so much. Still loves it. I always saw it as like an escape from work. So just take me up to Vermont because I'm from the East Coast originally, born in New York. So it's like 3.5 hours up north to southern Vermont to Stratton, and we'd ski almost every weekend, starting from like 3 years old. Um, and my mom, it's kind of funny. Like I ended up going down the freestyle route later in life, but love my mom to death, but she's like afraid of heights, which is kind of funny. So, when you first start, so she's not really much of a skier because she didn't like the chairlifts as much. But, when we first started out, you don't really need to take a chairlift. You can walk up a little hill, kid skis down. And I had like a lot of issues actually, like stopping on a dime, and I would just blow right past them and not know how to stop. So, um, what she would do is she busted out a chocolate bar when I was 3 years old, and she's like, if you stop in front of me and you don't hit me, you get a bite of the chocolate bar. If you hit me, you don't get a bite. So she trained me like a dog, which is kind of a funny way to start. And then quickly grew past that, was able to start taking chairlifts with my dad, and yeah, that's really where the passion for the sport started. We just saw the escape that he got from it, and I just followed in his footsteps.
So, so I guess educate me a little bit. So you're three when you're just kind of learning the skills, doing the bunny slope. Is it age? Is it skills? Like, at what point do you graduate to saying, okay, now it's cool to take the chairlift and start doing like some bigger hills?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is not up to me at the time, at least.
Right.
A lot of, I guess it's dependent on like how well I'm doing, but parents had to have a vision for ultimately like what the next step is and to like put you in the right place at the right time. So like beyond fortunate for their support in that manner. And just always seeing where that next step was and being able to position me there. I always just gravitate and try to excel path like through that and pass to the next step. And yeah, just loved the sport so much at the time. It meant everything. It still means a lot to me too, but especially as a kid, it was definitely life.
Your chocolate story kind of reminds me of, so the very first season of the show. Every I guess I should say every year I have a question I ask every single guest, and the question changes every year. And the first year I was asking everybody, like, if you could only choose one recovery food for the rest of your life, what would it be? And most people would choose some kind of like, not nutritionally recovery, but like a pleasure food, pizza or beer or ice cream or something. So that makes me wonder, is it like, did it become a long-term thing where you're like, you completed a run and you're like, it's time to go get a chocolate bar? Like, did that become a thing, or?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm like not much of a chocolate guy anymore. I switched over to the other side. I like the like sweets like Starburst and Skittles. That's like my go-to if I need some sugar, but try to stay away from that stuff as much as possible. Just try to keep it healthy. But if I have to cave in, it's definitely like for a pack of a Starburst or even Mambas as well. Love that type of candy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Uh, it's are there like, so but before we got going, I was telling you about my friend Todd, who's been on the show a couple times, Todd Buckingham, in his kind of love of cinnamon rolls. That's his like post race ritual, whether it's local triathlon or national championship. He goes and finds a new cinnamon roll. Um, is there? And I would say the vast majority of like endurance athletes I know, they have some kind of celebratory thing after a race. Is that a thing in skiing where you're all like, let's go? I don't know. Because in my mind, I'm like, we'll warm up. So let's get like hot chocolate or like a drink or something. Is that a thing that happens in skiing?
I think the celebration gets maybe if there's like any success, a little bit bigger than that.
Okay.
Uh, I think just like action sports definitely gravitates more towards a party lifestyle as well. I try to keep it as healthy as I could. But if you're over 21 and there's some success there, maybe step over to the bar and have some fun and make sure that you're not skiing too hard the next day so you have some time to recover.
Yeah, it's I think it's hard to I don't know, maybe not relate, but like to visualize or really understand, I'll call them cultural differences between the sports. I think endurance athletes, maybe we're just too tired too tired to do anything. Been racing for 2, 4, 8, 10, depending on what the event is, hours, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go take a nap now. Versus like, how long does would a typical run take you? I know when I was talking to Doug, the downhill runs are a couple minutes, even though they're like anaerobic the whole way down.
Yeah, so like for a half pipe, that I mean, it didn't really last more than 30, 40 seconds tops, which is really, really fast. So it's a sprint. Ultimately, I did a lot of slope style as well, which is more of the jumps and the rails too. That could
Mm-hmm.
be a little bit longer, just depending on the size of the course. That could be like anywhere from 40 seconds to a minute and a half. Um, but yeah, I think it's definitely like a different type of energy because I definitely go for runs as well, and I'm dead after 3, 5 miles, which is probably nothing for you. That's where you get started.
On my
So
like short run this morning, it was like 3
yeah,
miles for
exactly. So
recovery.
it's a different type of energy. I feel like freestyle athletes or action sports athletes are more just like a bunch of wild monkeys who are very calculated at what they do to be able to make it happen. But yeah, it's definitely a different type of energy. I mean, always high octane. Even a large component of the sport too is even like skiing at night as well, at all hours too. Just whether you're filming, some jumps, whatever it might be, to get a unique shot on camera. So it's training isn't always necessarily as black and white, like from a 9 to 5 type of thing. So the energy is, I guess, pretty sporadic on when you're actually going out and doing your sport too. So
So we got a lot to get around to, but um, thinking about Cintri, because I'm trying to figure out, how do you get from like I'm freestyle skiing, I'm in like action sport culture, to now I'm running a media company. So I'm wondering, like, were you guys taking like video yourself and the tricks and stuff when you were doing it to, because like I saw the reel of you, and we'll try to have a link down in the description if you want to check out that reel of Evan. Um, is that like the kind of the natural progression? You're like, oh, I'm already learning how to shoot all this video, so like let's do this for other people.
yeah, definitely. So like as time progressed, like, yeah, it kept, after being a little kid, just kept skiing all the time, and just I think like naturally, alpine racing really wasn't for me. It's like a little bit more traditional an approach, where you're just skiing perfectly through runs on gates. And I was always like kind of a little kid just jumping off of the side of all of the runs as well. And it's like always just gravitated to just finding my own path a little bit on slopes. And I think my parents definitely saw that at an early age. So really just like love jumping, and just like quickly got a lot better at it. Started jumping on trampolines a lot, and really like translated all of that I guess that air awareness over to skis, and really started to learn how to make that happen too. And I think like over time just started entering events that really allowed me to like really just find like a track to keep excelling. And I think it's like 17 won Junior Olympics, which was a pretty cool opportunity. And I think like that was really when social media was starting too. I think like taking your own film, whether someone else captured it or if you're bringing a camera up on hill to film yourself, film friends, whatever it might be, um, and started like really getting a little bit better at like taking that content, editing it up in a clean way to like present it online, whether it be YouTube, Facebook. At the time there wasn't really an Instagram yet. It was just like really helpful to just get notoriety and get sponsors, and just make a name for yourself in the industry as well. And like that over time, like that, obviously the social media revolution has just catapulted people's careers in sports, whatever it might be, and like really democratized fame as well. And I think just like there's a huge correlation between like filming, the types of angles that you capture, and like the type of flow that you feel when you're doing action sports, whether it's skiing or even if it's skateboarding. It doesn't have to be skiing per se. But there's like a flow, a transitional flow that is quite similar. We were just like getting a lot better at filming ourselves on hill, and like just relaying that back into post production and editing content that just like looked really cool, and make and putting your sponsors logos on those videos too. And so just like really started building that skill set simultaneously, like more in the back half, like really in the later half of my career in skiing. And after a while, like injuries started to set in, and just really started to think about like the next chapter in life, like past skiing. And after like right at like senior year of college, just decided to just come up with a company name, put ourselves out there, and just started creating content for sponsors within action sports, then some like non-endemic sponsors to the industry. And then I moved to Boston, and we were creating content for companies that aren't even necessarily in action sports, more mainstream sports, and then just like a variety of companies that have nothing to do with sports. And like the company started to really take off. But we've found our niche like really in short form content.
Mm-hmm.
So anything like really below 3 minutes. But we're exploring a few different realms here to see how we can do in long form, and have some different things in the works that be sure to share with you in the next few months or so. But yeah, it was like very natural evolution on how everything kind of picked up. It wasn't like, one day I'm going to start a company, and it had nothing to do with my past life. It was just very, very natural how it grew, from a passion in sports directly into a profession that like helped my career in sports, and then sports helped my career. So it's quite cool how that evolved.
Well, like in some ways, I'll say we have a kind of a similar threads there, where it's like I had my kind of like own entrepreneurial bend, and I already had a company, um, like like I design card games and board games, and I was still competing and trying to earn my professional license in triathlon, and then like just experiencing problems on my own and starting Solpri, which is now associated with the podcast here. And I didn't ever have, at least at the beginning, I didn't ever have intentions of it like being real big. I was just like, triathlon's expensive. Like if it could just help me pay to go to races and like compete, and it's grown bigger than that, but not that it's huge yet. So it's always interesting, like how different people find their paths into owning their own business, and the kind of like organic connections that you almost can't force. It's like you engage life in a certain way, and then you just kind of come upon the opportunity. What I think some people miss though sometimes is that you also have to be able to like grab that opportunity, not just see it and then go, oh, that's nice, and then walk away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you just like anything, it just probably everyone has some sort of vision for what they want to do, but like the actual execution is just takes a lot. It takes like 5 times longer than you had anticipated to. Definitely taking way longer than I had thought, but that's I still feel like we're on a great path. But that if I could give myself like 5, 6 years ago any advice, is like just be as patient as you possibly can, because like my vision of it at the time was like, oh yeah, this will take off in a minute, but that's not the case.
It's gonna explode. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
well, I think, man, I think some of it's like simply a matter of that's how it works for most people, especially because like we're both bootstrapped companies. Like neither of us has taken VC capital and just spending a ton of money on ads that's just negative dollars just to get eyeballs on things. There are obviously those companies, and they blow up quickly, but they also have the tendency to blow up and go bankrupt because they never reach profitability. So like they can't survive. It's either they become this unicorn or they cease to exist. So I think some of it's just the nature of the route that you've chosen, just knowing that it takes a while for word of mouth to get out, for networks to be built. And you already, I think you got hooked up doing stuff with Red Bull because you already had some of that network in the sport, and that's a connection that like if I tried to start your company, I don't know anybody at Red Bull. I'm definitely not getting in with Red Bull. Like, so some of that like organic work you did just from doing the things you do, kind of put you in a unique position too.
Yeah, thank you. It's not even me, right? I think like all of Cintri, a lot of us come from action sports background too. Like my co-founder Mark, he was the one that actually had the connection there with Red Bull. It was through
Okay.
a time at UVM, and then one of the directors that we work with, Tyler Reedus as well. He has a great relationship with Red Bull too. So it wasn't even me in that instance. It was those guys making it happen. But like, I think just like the core of our DNA is just all of us come from like action sports in a sense there. But yeah, they did a lot of the great work that you see on our website as well. So appreciate all the success that they've achieved and giving back to the company.
So like as a business owner, when I was kind of getting ready to talk to you, and kind of saw just the in the information I was looking through before actually looking through any of the reels, that you're doing content and video for companies. I'm like, okay, well, what are you actually doing? Because there's if I say Harmon Brothers, you probably know who I'm talking about, but the average person would be like, who? The people that did like the videos for Squatty Potty and Purple and that kind of thing. So like there's that kind of media company that's doing, you know, branding and like direct sales, and like that is not what you're doing in the slightest. Like it's definitely brand association, but it's not like here's a product, come buy it, you know. So like tell me like, and maybe this is a boring for the average listener, so sorry if it is, but I guess this is my show, so I get to ask the boring questions. Like where do you fit in to the kind of content side of companies, since you're at least from the reels I could see, it's not just like, hey, buy Red Bull or what, like it's, you know, it's a
Yeah.
little more sophisticated than that.
Yeah, I mean, simply we create the commercials and the advertisements. We're on the creative side, so we'll script out what a commercial will look like. We'll completely like map out every detail of it, and then whether it requires film or 3D animation or a combination of the two, we execute according to the script and the plan that we have in place. I think like 20 years ago, if like a Procter and Gamble puts out a commercial, it's one staple commercial that they have for television. But even a company like that today, just because of social media, one commercial now could equate to like technically 20 different pieces of content that they'll distribute on like 20 different platforms. So they might have an ad that they put on Amazon Prime from the same shoot that they did for a commercial that you'll see on television, and then that same piece that they'll take from that and then transform it in a different way for Facebook, transform it in a different way for Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever it might be. And that's really what we help do. So, you know, like if a company comes to us and they asked us to create a commercial, it's not just like one commercial. There could be like 30 different pieces of content from just that one campaign that we do with them, that they just distribute on a multitude of different platforms. But ultimately, it's to help them drive awareness and sales to their company. But we're strictly on the creative side for that.
I was thinking about, so you're talking about trying to do, I'll say longer form, but even if you're like 10-minute pieces, I would consider that long form for like the style that you do. Is that like, um, say you take your director hat off and you put your skis back on? Is that
Yeah.
like a short documentary on like Evan and his story and like how that ties, like it's like sponsored athletes. I don't know who's current with Red Bull in skiing, but like say you take one of their athletes and like you do a piece on them. Is that what you're thinking about long form?
Exactly. Yeah, we're not creating movies or like hour-long documentaries
Right.
yet, perhaps in the future. But I think right now we just got to play to our strengths and where we're really succeeding. That's really around short form. And I think just like the next natural phase for us is maybe a bit of that, like you said, like mini documentary, just these mini stories
Right.
that can be like anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes long.
Does like just look at the style of what you guys make. That seemed like to to me that seems like the next step. But I'm, you know, it's not my company and I have no perspective in terms of like making these videos. I have no idea. Like the closest touchstone I have is like I do a very pinch a bit of like scoring. I'm more orchestral. Like I don't do the kind of scoring you guys do. So I guess I did want to ask about that too. So again, to the listener, if this is boring, sorry. But like, how are you guys putting your music together with your stuff? Because I mean, it's always going to be like, you know, high action rock or hip hop, like those different genres that have a lot of energy. Are you just like going out getting stock pieces and then cutting to it, or do you have somebody on staff that's doing that?
We don't have anyone on staff right now. We work with a bunch of other companies that will help with that. We also use there's a variety of different platforms too, where we'll license music
Yeah.
as well. We do all like audio effects internally though.
Mm-hmm.
So if like, we film you, walking up your stairs, but when we filmed it, the audio from your feet uh, actually hitting the stairs sounded a bit funky. Someone on our team might literally take a completely different sound bite of feet hitting the ground when you're walking
Mhm.
and overlay that in to make it have more of a natural effect, or just make it seem a little bit more real, or cleaner to the viewer too. So we take on the effects, but we don't score our own music internally.
It's just because of where you are size wise. I was just curious how that works. And like I said, it's something
Well,
I'm personally interested in, though I'm not familiar with like constructing music for those genres. So I can't be any help to you, unfortunately. Um, but it's just, I see it and I'm like, how is that done? I want to know. Like, I want to pick it apart and figure it out.
yeah, it's definitely a really awesome space to be in. Like we love it. It's kind of interesting that you say that. Like we've been working on a few movie trailers as well,
Mm-hmm.
and we just did our first movie trailer for a remaster of a movie called not Animal House but Animal Room, by director Craig Singer, which is really awesome. And we worked with um, Hakeem Draper and David Lotwin at Link Media Partners, and they did all the music scoring for that, which is really cool. So this was a movie from, I think it was the late '80s or '90s actually.
Mm-hmm.
It has like Neil Patrick Harris in it as well, Amanda Peet, and it should be coming out here in the fall too. And I think the trailer was just released, and we're starting to do a lot more trailer work as well. We feel like it's a very natural, it's also a very natural fit for the type of content that we create.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more music scoring involved in trailer creation from what we're realizing versus like the commercials that we'll produce for a consumer goods company,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is great. And then yeah, I don't know if you saw in like the recent movie, The Tomorrow War on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it has like Chris Pratt in it, very successful actor as well. We just did an influencer piece for him just around the movie as well. My co-founder Mark did the editing, and we actually partnered with Sailor, which is a media company in Los Angeles, around that too. So that was like really awesome, and that's like really where we're seeing a lot of the music scoring happening, is more on that side of the business. And we have a lot of content that we haven't released yet, but sometime this fall we'll make a true announcement around it. But I guess a sneak peek here on your podcast.
Nice, nice, man. Yeah, I know for since I kind of hang around composers and people that want to get into film and stuff, it seems like a lot of them, like the foot in the door is, oh, like I'm scoring some trailers. Not, you don't often get your foot in the door by, oh, I'm doing a full length film as your first project. It's just because you're not proven, So I think it, on your side, it's also like that makes sense too. You're already doing short form. So like, let's cut some trailers. So we're going from, 45-second pieces to minute and a half, 2-minute pieces. And then
Yeah,
like building up that storytelling ability.
well, we could be executive producers on movies if our parents were founders of massive technology companies. So that's another way to get into it. But if you're building it from the ground up, yeah, this is the path. This is the natural path forward.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Um, I have to jump back a little bit,
Yeah,
and so it's like a kind of a hard cut. But before we talk, we're going recording officially. You had mentioned that you had met a previous guest, or or are friends with a previous guest of mine, AK Ikwuakor, back on episode 106. Hopefully, I did a little bit better job with his name this time. Um, so I wanted to ask, how did you meet him? Because you said when you came to Boston, he was like one of the first people you met. He's a track guy. You're like freestyle skiing. Like the sports don't really collide very very often. So I mean, how do you get in touch with him?
yeah. I mean, AK is the best. He's been such a, like, he's been instrumental in like helping me get plugged into the Boston scene as well when I first moved here for over 4 years ago. Just as, outside of his success in business and sports, just a really nice guy. So lucky to know him. But I mean, I think we both, we're just networking like crazy in Boston because we're both trying to just meet as many people as we can, great people, and like grow our businesses too. So I forget who actually introduced us a while ago. It may have been an agency partner. And we grabbed coffee a couple of years ago and just stayed in touch. He's given me a ton of advice. And I mean, he gives like massive presentations on just like how to improve like sales acumen, public speaking, etc. So he's been a huge help there too. And I think he just moved out to Los Angeles and has a really nice new gig as well in television too. So I'm excited to catch up with him after this podcast and learn a little bit more about what he's up to. And my co-founder, Mark, is actually based out in Newport Beach. So I have to make a trip out there and visit both of them.
Nice. That's why sometimes I'll have people come on like yourself and they'll say, oh yeah, I know so-and-so. And like, my assistant does the research and you'd ask like, how does she find all these things? And those are sometimes we don't find some of those connections because I don't know that there's any way to find them besides asking. And so it's always fun when I have kind of like accidental connections or incidental connections between guests. And I'm like, oh, that's neat.
Yeah. That's a small one too. I mean, Boston is like it's obviously a big city, but I mean, people see it as a big town too. It definitely has a town vibe to it. It's very small in nature in terms of just people and connections. So it's great to meet people like AK.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about kind of what you're doing nowadays, sports wise, physical activity wise. I think you'd said when I listened to the podcast with you and the executive athlete podcast with Ken Lubin, talking about just the impact and kind of, and even earlier in our conversation, you mentioned like injuries creeping up and just the impact that freestyle skiing has on your body, where it's like you're probably not going to be 90 years old doing flips and stuff like getting in dropping in the half pipe. So, I mean, I'll say left the sport behind. I'm guessing you probably still ski from time to time, but like, what are you doing nowadays to stay active? Can you keep that going?
Yeah, freestyle skiing is not like a pastime sport like golf or anything, where you just keep it going, doing flips at age 70. Maybe there's some savages out there that are able to maintain it. If you know him, Tanner Hall, but other than that, no, it's not for the faint of heart. So I mean, yeah, like I had a bunch of injuries, more toward the end. It was like more ACL tear and then just shoulder dislocations. That's really what honestly kind of sidelined me. I think it held me back a little bit, but try not to make too many excuses. Yeah, like like really the story behind the injuries were had like a bang out year in 2008 and 2009. Was doing a lot of World Cups, like a bunch of top tens in World Cups, and then got a top 10 at AFP World Championships in 2009. Qualified for FIS World Championships too in 2009, and then like tore my ACL like really quickly after that, and like shoulder dislocations too. And I went back to school at UVM, and I was like, all right, well, I love to ski, but it is a very young person's sport, and I don't know. I was a bit over it mentally, but then I saw that it became an Olympic sport. Like while I was healing back up, I was like, I mean, I just started missing it even more. Like aside from it being an Olympic sport, I was like, all right, like I feel like I still have so much left in me. I'm only like 20, 21 years old here. Like it's very young and still in great shape. So try to make a comeback. It did a couple more years of competing, did the Olympic qualifiers in, was it 2013, 2014, for Sochi, which was the half pipe debut for skiing in the Olympics. They chose 4 guys. I think I was like around eighth guy, so it didn't end up making the cut. But it was an awesome ride, and I just decided that it was over. The sport was, I mean, every day, every year, the tricks that are being done by like these girls and guys on skis is just in all action sports is unreal to see the progression. I just honestly didn't know if I could continue to keep up at that pace, nor did I have my heart in it. So I thought that was just like the perfect breakoff point, but like still kept jumping a little bit, like can let it go like fully. But I would say like 2017, 2018, like really didn't do as much jumping anymore, and it's kind of like really become a recreation sport like to present date. But
Mhm.
the injuries were for me were like really around the ACL and the shoulders. But staying in the best shape possible, trying to eat well and work out as much as I can, so maintain a healthy body till my last breath.
I'm thinking about like trick improvement, and I haven't, I watched the Winter Olympics, but I don't watch the sport much. I don't actually watch a ton of action sports or really sports in general, oddly enough. Kind of live in my own little bubble. But I was thinking about, I feel like I just saw a video of like a 12-year-old kid. This is obviously skateboarding, but like a 12-year-old kid completing the first 1080, and like Tony Hawk was there to congratulate him. And it, it made me wonder, because this kid's 12, like, are the like the more extreme tricks, is it a young person sport because like just size gets in the way as you get older, you get a little bigger, you're carrying more muscle, like with that comes power, but then like you're fighting against gravity, like is it a young person sport in part because they have to grow up in it and kind of get those specific muscle, powers for their tricks, or is it like just because they haven't been broken by injuries yet? Like
Yeah.
what is it that makes it, because 12 is pretty damn young to be landing a huge trick like that. And I'm sure there's probably standouts in skiing as well that, that I just simply am completely unaware of. So, I mean, what would you attribute that to?
Yeah, I mean, hey, I think when you're young, you're just a rubber band, so you're not getting injured as much. Like one fall, and you're lighter, so one fall can affect a kid differently than it would an adult
Mm-hmm.
if they fall in the same way. And I think second is like the map that is presented visually to a kid. In a generation versus another generation. So, a kid that was presented like the map of tricks that have been done in skateboarding 20 years ago is fully different than the map of tricks that's presented to a kid coming up in skateboarding today.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe the 360 was like one of the most crazy things to think of, like 30 years ago on a skateboard. So no one's going to be trying 1080s. That's unfathomable.
Right.
Now that there's just such a higher level of difficulty being done on a day-to-day basis in skateboarding. Like it just seems more feasible because everybody's doing it, type of thing. And I think that's like the same thing in investing or like in business too. Like, a couple people started tech companies and then they realize the success, and more people start doing it. Then like now everyone has a tech company or everyone's trying to create a tech company because like it's the way to get wealthy. And it's the same thing. There's like a different map presented to the youth in today's age than there was 20, 30 years ago. And just seeing others have that, just seeing that possibility already be done makes it easier psychologically, I think, to break through to that next barrier.
Gotcha. Evan, before we run out of time, if you watched AK's episode, you know the question already, but this year I'm asking everybody, how do you stay motivated after failing to reach a goal?
Oh man, that's such a good question. Um, Maybe like there's feel like I'm a sensitive guy, but at the same time, like I think I'm good. I think a lot of it is like compartmentalizing as well, and just like loving what you're doing. Yeah, that's just it. At the end of the day, if you don't love what you're doing, you're just gonna walk away. But if you like really love what you're doing, it's just you just see failure as like a lesson. You can, I know that sounds like a bit of a cliche, but it honestly is just like, it's just the all time motivator. If you actually are attracted to what you're doing and you really want to continue doing it regardless, like you'll just keep coming back regardless. I mean, obviously the successes definitely are highs, and everyone loves celebrating a success. But if you can just be happy doing what you're doing, regardless of the highs and the lows, like that's that's how the real success actually does come, and you can get over a small fail.
That's good, man. Evan, where can people get in touch with you, check out what Century's doing, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, our website is cintri.media. So that's CINTRI.media. Um, and all of our contact information's on that website as well. We have a contact us page too. I would love to talk to anyone that's interested in learning more, or just wants to chat it up, or even interested in a collaboration with Cintri too.
That's good, man. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. Appreciate the time as always.